Get Engaged is a monthly podcast brought to you by Lutheran Social Services of Southern California, where, ignited by faith, we live out God's love by embracing, equipping, and empowering vulnerable people in Southern California.
Welcome to Engage, LSSC's podcast where we share heartwarming stories of hope and explore topics that matter to our communities with the help of experts and thought leaders. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Mitchell, and I'm excited to bring you insightful conversations on a wide range of topics. So sit back, relax, and get ready to engage. Today, I have the pleasure of meeting with international recording artist, Kedma Wenz. Kedma, it's a pleasure to have you here today. I'm fascinated by your story and just your life's work. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and your love for music. You have a fascinating and wonderful story.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure, a huge pleasure. I mean, it's one of those things that I never expected to be doing on a day like today. My name is Kedma Wenz, and I've been singing since I was about 3 years old. Wow. And he started unassuming, really, at my church. And my dad, he plays guitar. He plays some flamenco guitar. And he used to take me to church and teach me a song and put me on a little bench or a bar stool after Sunday school. And I would close the Sunday school by singing. I thought every kid on the church did that. At 3 or 4 or 5, I had no concept that I was the only one up front. Until we were about 7 years of age. Then I realized that there was nobody by me. And then I choked. And he's like, it's okay, we can finish. And then I became conscious of music. But music has been a part of my life since very young. My dad used to play. He played in several different church groups. He wrote his own music. He participated in several competitions. And he was my big introduction to music in church and out of church.
Wow. So I read that you were actually the first gospel artist to record at Paramount Studio.
That is
with
true.
Some of the greats like Michael Jackson and Celine Dion. What was that experience like? That is a fascinating story.
No pressure, right? So I get a call from the label that signed me here. It's called Melody International. And the CEO said, we have studio time for you at Paramount. And I was like, excuse me? It's like, yeah, Paramount. Hollywood. I was like, the
Paramount.
And he's like, yes. So I prepared like crazy, and we were going to have the recording of Conduce, which is the album, 12 songs in Spanish. And it's a variation from the first one, which is in Portuguese. So I walk into that place shaking because I'm like feeling all responsible. And they put Diana Ross's microphone in front of me. I'm going, oh. It was both honorable, impressive, and terrifying. Lots of preparation, lots of rehearsal by myself in my bathroom. And we recorded the whole album in 4.5 hours.
You recorded the whole album in 4.5 hours?
Yes.
You really did prepare.
I did.
To go in there and kill it.
I did. I was scared to death because an hour of that studio time, it's some crazy number that I could not even fathom on repeating. And every time you miss something, you have to redo it, and you have to redo it. I mean, you're preparing a whole album, a whole project with not 2 or 3. It was not a single, it was 12 songs. So I prepared like crazy. And when we were done and the sound engineer said, it's a wrap, and I look at him, it's like, are you sure? Are you sure? There's nothing else I need to do? He's like, nope, we're good. So they had extra time to do some more masterizations and some more things on the album that were needed without having to incur the extra cost. So to me, it was like, yes.
Yeah.
I was terrified. And then I crashed the next day, obviously, because I was so
pumped up on adrenaline
very
and
much.
All of that stuff. And now
Yes.
Your body's like, I can relax now.
So I'm the first Christian singer at Paramount. After me, there are a couple people that started going in, but yeah.
Wow, that is definitely honorable. And something that you should continue to share, because either way, all the work you're doing is inspirational. So I'm glad that you were the first at Paramount. But that takes me into asking, you said that you were recording in Spanish.
Yes.
How many languages do you speak?
Portuguese is my primary language. I'm from Brazil. I was born in a city called Recife and raised in a city called Salvador, which is the state where Brazil was discovered in the 1500s. So we have a lot of musical African influence and samba and bossa nova and into the culture of the city itself and the state. And that is my primary language. I went through school all the way to with the equivalent of a junior college in Brazil and came to the United States to continue education, to continue to go to college, university, and things like that. I wanted to come here to go to school. Was not the whole idea of I'm going to be there forever or be rich and go back and make it back or anything like that. I really came to learn. But Portuguese is my primary language. Coming here, I started attending all English because I wanted to make sure my English was correct. And then once I got the English down, then I learned Spanish. But I learned Spanish on purpose. I wanted to be able to write, to read, to translate, and I became a simultaneous translator in Spanish. So I can talk back at you in Spanish at the same speed as you can talk to me. And I can write, I can read, and that caused me to translate all my songs from Portuguese to English to Spanish. So I have music in all three languages. And I do ministry in all three languages.
I like the intersection between education and your passion, right? So
Very
you
much.
had a desire to learn and explore, and you use that with your talents to kind of pave or carve out your path for you.
Yes, that's true. Part of my education is in music, sound reinforcement, voice. My scholarship was in music and Latino in studies and healthcare, as well as the component of business and administration. So I'm like this hodgepodge of interest things. My own interest, obviously. But music has always been a part of that because I've always done music as a service to others. Music is one of those conduits that transport you to a place that you remember you were or take to a place that you wanted to be. And it's powerful. And that crosses barriers of language and rhythm and culture and country. And that with a little healthy dose of how do I make money with it in the daily living allows me today to leave my music as a pure ministry. And whatever is earned in there goes straight to mission because I can't do that. And that to me is my greatest gift.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That is going to actually lead me into what we're going to talk about next.
My pleasure.
We'll be right back with Dr. Tiffany Mitchell and this month's guest. To read a free digital copy of Engage magazine, go to lsssc.org. Or for your free subscription to the quarterly printed edition of Engage, select Contact Us and subscribe.
Kedma, you use your music royalties to support children in the Amazon. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing in the Amazon and how that came about?
Yes, that is true. All my earnings or any royalties are guided towards education. The part of Brazil that I'm from, which is the northeastern part, is the most impoverished of the country. The northern part of Brazil, which is Amazon, Belém, are even more. I mean, you can say even less wealthy. It's much more impoverished. And in order to go to school in Brazil, even in public education, you need to have uniforms and you need to have your own supplies. There's very limited supplies for public education. On top of everything, education it's not considered a right. It's a privilege. So I came here to go to school. That was my main point, main focus. So that is very important to me because breaking the poverty cycle, it's only achieved by education. Because it's the thing that can take you to where you need to go and nobody can take it away from you. So that is passionate, important to me. So right now, for the last few years, we have been working with the local church in 2 different places in Brazil. One specifically in Belém, is about 2 hours from the main capital. Amazon is the state. Belém is one of the capitals in Pará. So 2 hours away, it is a ribeirinho, which is a community that's by the river. We're able to actually buy a plot of land with a dilapidated property. And we are restoring that property, and that's going to be a school for the kids that we have been helping for the last few years. Wow. So last December, we had about 500 of them for a meal, for a celebration of Christmas, and their parents and some of their community came to help build and restore the property. So this is very important because as we start, they're not only going to have a location, they're also going to learn how to plant, how to raise their own things, to be able to meet the definition of eating at school, but what they actually produce. So it's a space now that goes beyond just an education, and we are able to continue to provide books and uniforms for the kids that go to that school. And we work with the churches in the area. There's a couple of Assemblies of God churches. There's 1 or 2, I think, Baptist churches in the community. And what I mean by community is nothing close, because there are no roads. You commute by boat.
By boat?
Yes, you commute by boat.
So your closest neighbor has to get to you by boat?
By boat. So when we had those 500 kids in December, they all commuted by either walk through the jungle or by boat.
So the significance of the school is beyond anything that we really here in the States can even imagine. This is a chance for freedom, in a sense, for these youth, because they're given an opportunity that actually isn't freely given.
It's hope. It's hope that they can do something for their communities. They hope that they can do something for their parents.
Right.
Hope that they can actually get out of a situation that's really, really, I'm not using the word impossible because we serve a God that all possibles of possibilities, but it is a very challenging situation to get out of it unless you have some sort of outlet. And who would think that just common education, learn how to read and write, learn a skill would do that for you? Basic skill. How to raise animals, how to plant something. We're talking about the Amazon forest here. It's jungle. It rains every day. People move their lives before and after the rain. If you don't have a watch or a clock, it's before and after because it rains every day at a specific time. So they move their lives around there, but it's a river that provides fish, and then you need to figure out the rest. Things like rice. Rice and beans are a very common staple food in Brazil, but not there because the tropical weather does not produce rice the way that the rest of the country would. So beans and rice, even that is a little more challenge. So the whole acai bowl that everybody's so crazy about here, don't taste nothing like that when you're in there. They produce them, and it is a savory meal, and it is rich in proteins and all of the necessary means, and they eat that every day. So that is their rice and beans.
Wow. I'm reminded of, I think it's Proverbs 16:16, which says, wisdom and understanding is greater than silver and gold.
Yes.
So, those things, material things, they're fleeting.
They are.
But when someone has an education, like you said, you can never take that from them.
Yep.
And that is their hope. It is something that will be able to provide for themselves and their families, like you stated. The work that you're doing is amazing. I don't often get to meet people who are doing exactly what you're doing, and it's inspiring. And it makes me grateful for what I have and passionate about giving back the way that I have, right? Sometimes you don't see the fruits of your labor, but when I hear stories of the things that you're doing, I think, okay, the giving that I give to other countries or the things that I support, although I'm not there physically to see these things,
makes a difference.
I know when I hear these stories, everything makes a difference.
It does. And I bring this back, it's very personal to me because I remember the first time I walked, like graduation day. And I remember walking in and getting my diploma. And it was here that I remember thinking, nobody can take this away from me. I remember that. It was so real to me. Nobody can take this away from me. And it doesn't matter how much I make today or how much I made yesterday, but I can get down, get up, and continue walking because now I have a skill set that allows me to do that. And that is what I wish for the kids that we support in Brazil. You will have a skill set that will allow you to move it forward, whatever that might be. So it's very important to me, and I will continue to do this at all cost. I started all, out of pocket anyway. So music became a conduit to that. And I love it because God is good and he has provided for us, for our family, in a way that I'm able to do that and not look back. So it's a joy for me.
Thank you.
An honor, really.
Don't go away, and if you've been inspired by anything that you've heard on today's podcast and would like to volunteer for Lutheran Social Services of Southern California, see our website, lsssc.org. Select Donate, Volunteer, and donate your time and talent to a cause you care about most.
Kedma, you are an advocate for many things, and another passion I know that you have is the work that you do around human trafficking. So I know you're doing the Walk for Freedom in San Diego every year. Tell me about the Walk for Freedom and your connection with the support work in human trafficking and raising awareness around the cause and the issue.
Well, it's one of those things that God, there is no coincidence. And the more you realize that there is no coincidence, that God put people in your path for a reason and for a season sometimes. Singing in San Diego with one of my guitar players, his name is Andrea Monadi, and we do a lot of work in San Diego. I met this lady, and she was a victim of human trafficking. She herself was trafficked, and she was taken from Brazil and shipped all over to Japan. And she shared with me her personal testimony. And it was revolutionary to my brain because I knew of that. Coming from a third world upcoming country as Brazil, it's a reality. We know it happens and we know how it happens. And we were always talking over there, what not to do and to be alerted ourselves and aware of the tactics that are used. But she was telling me about her story and it just moved me. And I was like, okay, what can I do? Because I don't believe this is just in vain. It's just not a conversation. And she invited me. It's like, come and walk with us. So I start walking with him. And then last year, I was the person who did the worship before we do the walk. So we did the worship. It is a public place. And we were in a location in San Diego that we know is where they pull traffic, kids, young adults, and where they abuse them and they provide services for them in the area. And part of her story is she was able to leave, but the traffickants told her, we're going to get your daughter. And they did. So she left Japan, but they got her daughter. And her encounter with Christ happened out of the desperation of needing help. And she knew human help was not going to cut it. So she walked into a church and she said, God, I don't know anything about you, but I need you. I need to take my daughter out of this life. And that's what God met her. And the release of her daughter from Japan is nothing short of amazing. And both of them today are living testimonies in San Diego about what God has done. And they are important for that community over there. So I joined with them to make that public. It's real. It happens here. It happens in Brazil. It happens in Cuba. It happens everywhere. Because there is a need, there's a taste, suddenly enough, for the product. Man and their sin, as a human and sinful creature, there is a market for the human slave.
Modern day slavery.
Modern day slavery. And that's what it is.
I was really shocked to learn that the second largest underground economy in San Diego is human trafficking, the first being drug trafficking.
Yep.
I was just blown away and saddened, right? Because these victims are hidden in plain sight.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure we've all passed someone who needed support, needed our help, but we didn't realize that they were in need. And so bringing awareness to the cause and providing space for victims to feel safe enough to come forward is something that will continue to be a journey within our country.
Yep.
But something that I'm glad is becoming more prevalent and becoming more of a hot topic.
Exposed really.
Within our different communities.
Just the other day I was reading an article and I learned something that I've seen before, but I didn't realize. There is a sign if somebody on the street do this for you, like raise your 4 fingers and you put your thumb right in the middle.
Really?
They're asking for help. So I was watching a documentary, and this gentleman was carrying this lady, and they were shopping in Las Vegas, and she was looking for a camera, and she was doing this to the camera and doing this to the camera, doing the 4 fingers up, and you could hear the camera person, the surveillance saying, she needs help, she needs help, she needs help. Somebody please create a diversion. So they came into that contact. They kind of start talking to the gentleman there. Somebody else grabbed the lady and left to separate her from him. So those things need to be made public. There are ways that we can identify. The more we talk about it, the more people realize that this is a everyday, all the time occurrence. And you're right. We've set them. We've set by them in public places. We pass by them at eating places. And sometimes they're just looking for somebody who catch their eye contact and say, can you please help me? And making and creating this awareness and the system that goes behind to help. And it's not only women. I mean, this is amazingly enough, children, men of all kinds and backgrounds.
Young boys are actually trafficked at a younger age than girls. Yes. And I didn't know that. Yes. And so there's a whole world that evolves around human trafficking, and it's scary and it's a dark place, but we need to bring it to the light. Yes,
and there is hope. And there's hope. And I've seen and talked to people that God did a wonderful thing in their lives and brought restoration and healed their soul and their bodies and their mind and made them whole. And only the power of the Lord Jesus Christ that can be done. There is nothing else that would supply that hole in your heart that is the size of Jesus. And his amazing love covers a multitude of sins. So it's amazing to see the restoration that comes out of it. But you're right, we need to put it out there. It happens all the time, every time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing about that. And any of the work that you do in San Diego or any events coming up, please feel free to share it with me, and we'll make sure that we support publicizing these extremely important events that are taking place around San Diego, even in LA or San Francisco, the places where they're known to be prevalent.
Thank you. I will be certain to give you a call and to let you know, so we can make more and more noise out there. Because the more we know, we demystify some of that stuff. It makes more of a sense for people to understand.
Can't be afraid to talk about these things.
No, can't.
Up next, some final thoughts. And to discover all the many ways you can donate your treasure to Lutheran Social Services to help vulnerable people of Southern California, go to lsssc.org and select Donate.
Kedma, it's been such a pleasure meeting with you today.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you again.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap up, I just want to ask you, what's next for you? What's on your calendar of things to do? I know you're busy.
Well, I am supposed to go back to the studio. I'm going to record, I think there are 5 separate singles, most likely in Portuguese first, and then Spanish, and then English. So we go through them in phases. the studio that I'm going to record is going to be yet another first. Supposedly, and this is on secret. Okay. Is the studio where Michael Jackson recorded Thriller. I know. I was like, I'm getting those information and I'm going, are you sure? My name is not that big. I'm no big name on anywhere.
Wow.
But God is God.
Mm-hmm.
And he does what he does. And who am I to say no? Mm-hmm. So I'm waiting just for the dates so we can go back to the studio and do 5 songs. They'll be released incrementally, like one at a time. Mm-hmm. Then I'm going to go back to the tour that I didn't because of COVID. And that's in Europe. And I was scheduled to go in 5 different countries for, I believe, 14 days. So Portugal, Netherlands, Spain, already kind of confirmed, and we're just working out the dates. Going to Brazil to continue working on mission there. And always going to Mexico to do missions there too, which again, it's an education supporting ministry to provide food and education for children with special needs. So that's close home, so I can go back and forth in a day. There's a lot going on. Yeah. And this is just ministry-wise, and I'm just blessed to be able to do this, and I count every day as a gift. That's why it's called present, right? Is that they say? So I am truly honored to be here. So I thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to Engage. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review on your favorite platform. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media site and keep up to date with all of the ways LSSSC embraces, equips, and empowers Southern Californians in your community. Until next time, I'm Dr. Tiffany Mitchell. Thank you.